Hello, Wilderness Warriors. Huh. I'm so excited to be here today. I see we already have a comment or two, so I want to jump right there before we get started. Hello, Amanda Z. And I'm happy to be live here with you as well. And you said, I want to change more than I want to stay the same. Yet, do you have, yet do have a barrier type question that I could use some guidance on. So I'm looking forward to finding out what that question is a bit later, Amanda. I also wanted to take a minute to say hello to Pat. Nice to have you in here. And if you guys want to just let me know where you're coming in from and if you've ever had the occasion where you allowed something back into your life that you didn't really believe should have been there. And maybe it messed with your diet a little bit. I would love to be able to answer some questions on that and talk about that a bit more. I can tell you for me, it has happened. I have reintroduced nuts into my life at one point, and that took me off path. So it was not fun. It took me a long time to get back on track. And that's why I'm making this video for you guys today, because I want us to do better together. Meat is the only food we ever need to eat. We've heard this before. Dr. Chafee talks about it. And I know a lot of people find the way that Dr. Chafee says things controversial. So I'm going to point out that Georgia Eid, the psychiatrist that I interviewed, said it in our interview as well. She pointed out that we need not eat anything other than meat, fish, and poultry. And she said, if you could only afford one thing to buy, that's what you should buy: meat, fish, or poultry. That's the healthiest thing that you could spend your money on. So now the question is, why, Wellness Warrior, do we fight to bring fruit, vegetables, and processed foods back into our life after? Well, not even after. Sometimes we're doing it, we're still in the middle of trying to lose weight, and we will fight to get these things back into our lives. But then there are other occasions where we get to our goal weight, and the first thing we do is bring these damaging substances back into our lives. Now, when I say damaging substances, a lot of people don't see why fruit is damaging. Maybe we could see why certain plants, because of the toxins that are in them, would be damaging. I will tell you that for most people, when I say that there is zero need to eat fruit, and as a matter of fact, now that I know more about fruit, we shouldn't be eating it. Most people just don't get it. I want to pause here a little bit and just give you a bit of information as to why I'm really kind of pushing this idea right now. What I understood about avocados, which was the fruit that was still in my life when I spoke to Sally Norton, was that when you eat, not when you eat it, when a plant is making a fruit, there are toxins in it, so that if we eat it before it's ripe, it's going to make us not want to eat it. So it's going to make us sick in some way. It's going to harm us in some way. And it's not specifically humans. It's any animal that would eat it. This is the defense mechanism of plants that Dr. Chafee's constantly speaking about. Okay. So when I'm kind of railing against bringing back these foods that I find harmful to our health, and I'm questioning, why do we do that? It's because I learned that piece of information. The other thing that I learned before I learned that very specific thing a little while ago was that the fructose in fruits is not good for our liver. But that was why I was okay with avocados until I learned that there are toxins in the way that we process avocados because we pick them before they're ripe. The plant has not had the opportunity to take the toxins out. And so therefore, not healthy for us to eat. These two things combined together have allowed me to remove all fruits out of my diet, all vegetation out of my diet. Everybody's going to make their decisions. But I just wanted to clarify why I'm so against fruit and vegetables. It's clear why I'm against processed foods. I don't think there's anybody that's going to disagree with me that we don't need to eat processed foods. So I'm not even going to go more on that. Why do we fight to put them back in our diet, though? We do that because we were raised to believe that we should have variety in the way that we eat. We don't, at least I know in my household growing up, we never ate the exact same thing every single day for supper all the time. We didn't do that. And if we did, so the few of us that had like 3 or 4 things that we were eating on rotation were called picky eaters. I'm sure you've heard this terminology before, right? And I will admit that I was classified in my household as a picky eater. Okay. But if we take our attention away from humans for a second and look at the animal world, we're actually the only ones that are eating such a high amount of variety. Most animals have 1 or 2 things or a specific type of something that they eat on repeat all the time. So, okay, but we somehow we've decided we're supposed to have variety, and now the idea of having variety has added this nuance to it that a lot of us like to experience other cultures through their foods, which kind of plays into this variety thing that we're doing. But now it's also this way to interact with other parts of the world and feel connected to other people. And of course, we've allowed ourselves to start feeling connected through eating, just in general. We will come together across meals. We will come together for celebrations of different kinds, and there will be food available. Food is always on the menu. However, this point I'm making right now is that different cultural foods. So, for example, the way that Bajans cook, which are people from Barbados, is not quite the same as the way that Canadians from Quebec might cook versus Canadians from, let's say, the Ottawa, or sorry, Ontario region, or if you go more towards the east or more towards the west, it's not the same way that Americans cook. The flavor profile of American snack foods compared to the flavor profile of Canadian snack foods, Wellness Warrior, is so different. Back when I was still eating standard diet, when I would go to the US, I wouldn't buy actually processed food. Couldn't stand it. Things were either way sweeter or way more fake tasting than what I like. It just didn't feel, I couldn't buy the processed food in the US. Not to say that the processed food in Canada is healthier. It's the same garbage, but just the flavor profile was that different. Candies and junk food in China has different flavor profiles than it does here in Canada. And in all the other countries, we have different things we like. And so this is another reason that we think, or that we want to reintroduce and have these, because it's fun to experience other cultures. Although I don't think eating somebody's food is really experiencing their culture, but we've brainwashed ourselves into believing that that's part of the story. So the other reason that I think that we want to have this food come back is because we believe that eating the rainbow is healthy. It's a way to get vitamins and minerals. It's a way to get vital nutrients, which, okay, so why do I not care about any of this? We can get all the vitamins and minerals and micronutrients that we need from the meat, fish, poultry, and eggs that we eat. But The other thing that really frustrates me is the other day I was trying to figure out this whole phytonutrient thing. And I wanted to know specifically what phytonutrients do we need that we can't get after it's been processed through whatever animal we're eating. So I wanted to just maybe in my mind, I was thinking maybe I'm actually missing out on something and I should just verify. Like, I'm not a person who's going to believe just one source. And so even though I'm pretty confident in what I'm doing, I still check these things once in a while, Wellness Warrior. And so when I went to find out what phytonutrient I could possibly be missing, the first thing I did was I just typed phytonutrients and the definition of phytonutrient came up. And you would be surprised to learn, as well, I was surprised to learn. I think you'll be surprised to learn that a phytonutrient is a chemical that is in a plant. And then it went on to say nutrient and phytochemical are two equivalent terms. And all of a sudden, I realized that the same way that companies decided to say that seed oil, soybean oil, these seed oils are vegetable oils. They just changed the name because that suited them. It sounded better. They changed phytochemical to phytonutrient because it sounded better. But in fact, it's not doing something better in my body. It's the same. Okay. Well, after I stopped being angry, I realized, well, there doesn't seem to be a true reason for me to really eat vegetation. I don't think that any of these reasons I just gave you actually explains why someone who did keto or carnivore and gets the kind of results that I got. So I'm going to talk about myself for a second because, well, for those of you meeting me for the first time, hi, my name is Violet. I used to be 80 pounds heavier than I am right now, which put me in the classification of obese. I don't like knowing that that was my classification. At the time, I was in such deep denial. I wasn't even acknowledging it. I remember saying to someone at one point, yeah, I got a little bit of weight to lose. I look back on that statement. I do find that entertaining today, but I understand that I truly believed it back then. I truly believed that I was just a little overweight. Just a little overweight. Okay. We live in this world in our head, right? And so I lost 80 pounds. I healed. Can't say that yet. I no longer am in pain in my joints. That joint pain has gone away. It comes back. That's why I can't say that I healed it yet, because if I eat the wrong thing, the pain comes back. And I know for sure that my joints were taking me on that road to arthritis and all the things that my family has. I know that I was on that train to heart disease that my family has. I know that I was on the train to diabetes and all the things that my family has. Now, I didn't see any signs of eczema, but I had all kinds of skin rashes. I did have skin tags. Fatigue. Oh my goodness. The exhaustion that I walked around in that I didn't even know I was walking around in because I thought I had energy. And the brain fog that I was walking around in, I also did not know I was walking around in brain fog. I thought I was thinking clearly. So, Wellness Warrior, those are the things that come to me right away that I solved. Well, one more. I no longer think about food 24/7. I no longer have cravings that are out of my control that get me to overeat things that while I'm overeating them, I know that these are the foods that are contributing to my poor body composition that I didn't like. So I solved a lot of things, Wellness Warrior. Why would somebody who solves all that stuff turn around and bring back the foods that caused their poor health, that caused their bodily pain, that caused their embarrassment, and now learning that caused me to not even be functioning at the level that I possibly could have been functioning at. Why would anybody do that? And the truth is, we do it for a reason that we don't even know we have, a problem that we don't classify correctly at the very beginning. Because most people who do keto or carnivore at some point go through what is called the keto flu, which is another lie that companies have created, like the same way that carbohydrates and sugar are two words for the same stuff, but on packaging, they separate it to confuse us. Another lie that I'm going to point out for you guys to think about. Vegetable oil and the seed oil being the phytonutrient. Keto flu is actually sugar withdrawal. So, for the astute of you that like you cannot have withdrawal from something unless you're addicted to it. I was slapped in the face years ago to find out that I was addicted to sugar. Not the joke that I would make that, haha, I'm a chocoholic. I used to say that as a joke. It was actually true. Sugar was controlling my life. I was not controlling the food that I was eating. The reason, Wellness Warrior, that you reintroduce these foods is because, as we know from anyone who's tried to stop doing anything, if you put drinking down for a few weeks or months, but you know you're going to pick it back up, you can manage that. When you put drinking down with the idea that you're never going to pick it back up, somehow that's harder to do. Somehow we don't make as many days. So it's very interesting that when I'm trying to prove a point to myself, I don't have a problem. I cannot have that. I cannot have it because I know I'm going to go back to it because in my mind, this is temporary. The reason that we are failing, Wellness Warrior, is because we are treating our keto lifestyle like a diet. We are ignoring the part where while we started to do this new keto way of eating, we stumble on this keto flu, which actually equals this withdrawal from sugar, which actually equals, oh my goodness, I wasn't in control. That's why my weight was where it was. That's why my health was where it was. That's why I was having all the problems that I was having and still eating the thing that I knew I shouldn't have been eating because at the minimum I knew it was the thing that was causing my weight to rise. I'm going to add a wrinkle here. There are a lot of foods that you're currently, that you were eating that you didn't know were causing your weight to rise. For example, you didn't know that the bread was causing your weight to rise, or that the rice, or that the pasta, or that those healthy vegetables were causing your weight to rise. You fully blamed the processed foods. And that's why most people, especially people who do keto and carnivore, don't let the processed foods back into their lives easily. We fight against that. The problem is we let the healthy foods back in because, well, rice, every part of the planet eats rice. Like it's normal to eat rice and stay at a healthy weight. It was the junk food that had me in trouble. So this is where, again, because they're so clever in separating carbohydrates from sugar, and when we look at the package of rice, we see carbohydrates listed, but zero sugar. We're not making the link that rice is sugar because carbohydrates and rice are two words for the same thing. So why do we end up letting back in the food that's harmful to us? Why am I calling all of these foods junk? It's because our body makes all of the carbohydrates that we ever need. So our body makes all of the sugar that we ever need. We don't need to eat any carbohydrates. And since carbohydrates are the things that cause my weight to rise, since carbohydrates are the things that cause my body to be in pain and inflamed, since carbohydrates are the things that cause me to be in trouble with food, I look at all of it as garbage. It's all junk. And so, therefore, when we reintroduce some of the carbs that we had removed to get to our healthy place, we're bringing back the junk. So if you're a keto person and you're only eating your low glycemic vegetables, and this is what you've done to get yourself on a great path, and then you reintroduce bread maybe, or pasta, or a higher glycemic vegetable like potatoes or carrots, then yeah, you just brought junk back to your diet. If you're carnivore and you got to a healthy place being carnivore and only eating non-sweet things and mostly non-veg things. So some people do carnivore and they still have spices. Some people don't have spices. Okay. But then if I start reintroducing to my diet these things, yeah, I just brought junk back to my diet. And now I have to ask myself, why am I doing that? There's a second truth that I want to put out here, because the first truth, in case anybody missed it, the first truth is that we are addicted. This is why we do this. There's a secondary truth that I want to point out here, because I feel like this truth gets missed. And it gets missed because it's such a basic truth that we just assume that everybody knows this and we don't say it enough. So here it is. We need food. Food builds and powers our body. I want you to consider that what I just said is food does both things. So when I take in carbohydrates and I get energy, but it's not a quality that can build me, we need to stop calling that food. Because when we eat meat, poultry, fish, and eggs, everything that's coming in with that can build and fuel me. If you're not eating the fat that comes along with your meat, you might have a little bit of trouble with the fuel, but it will still fuel you. You might be tired. This is why every single person who talks about healthy carnivore, healthy keto says not to eat lean meat. But that's part of the message that sometimes gets missed. So if I'm only eating food, then my body will be able to build and fuel itself. I want to really help everyone to understand how important what I'm saying is right now. So I have an analogy for you, Wellness Warrior. I want you to imagine that you purchase a large plot of land, a large enough plot that you wouldn't want to walk across it from day to day. So, but it's a nice plot of land, so you don't want to ruin it either. So let's say that you decide, I'm going to get a bicycle. On a bike, I can get across it in a reasonable amount of time, but I'm not going to, pollute it. I'm not going to damage it. But when you go to buy the bike, bikes are expensive. And you know that you actually need a mountain bike to get across this terrain because there's no roads on this terrain. It's got some dirt parts, it got some grassy parts. Like you're not going to be riding on pavement. But price. So you go for a road bike, like a 10-speed kind of thing, right? Because it's cheaper. You're like, it's going to get me across. Okay. Well, it's going to get you across because both are bikes, right? But the terrain is going to, right? So a year later, your butt is sore from riding across this piece of land that you have because it's grassy and it's gravelly and it's unpredictable. Sometimes you're riding across and there's like little differences in level and you go down and like that seat, it's a road bike. It's not a mountain bike. And this right, but add to that the wheels on the bike, starting to get a bit dented and warped because again, it's not made for this kind of situation. And by the end of this year, when you take this bike that you have for getting across this terrain and sometimes use it to go get groceries, we're starting to see all the damage that's been happening to the bike because of its misuse, right? I mean, the wheels are kind of warped, so it doesn't even ride straight and properly. It's on the smooth road. It's like it just feels horrible to ride. So now it's not riding great across your beautiful property. It's not riding great on the smooth road, and you decide, well, I'm gonna have to fix this bike, right? I can't just keep riding it like this. That would be silly. And you start going and looking at, okay, what do I need to replace? And okay, I'm going to need new wheels. And obviously, if I get new wheels, I should get fatter tires so that it's more comfortable to ride. Okay, so I'm going to need, now that means I'm going to need a new fork. And maybe, since I'm getting a new fork, I should get one with suspension. And probably should get better handlebars so that I can sit up straight instead of like being bent over all the time like I'm racing, since I'm going right. Okay. And but now if I make those kind of changes, I'm probably going to have to change the brakes because I'm changing all the handlebars. So it's a different kind of braking system. And well, okay, now I'm going to need to change the chain and like maybe I should have a better, amount of gears because yeah, sometimes I'm going up these steep hills. There's a lot to change, Wellness Warrior. And you're looking at this and you're like, well, I can't afford to do all of that work on this bike right away in one shot because then, of course, the bike will be, first of all, down. I won't be able to get across my property, do all the things I need to do on my property, number one. But number two, cost. So I bought this bike in the first place. It was cheaper. So I'm planning and I'm going to do these upgrades a bit at a time. Does that make sense? Okay. But now I'm looking at the actual basic frame of the bike and I'm like, okay, a lot of questions going on in my head. Can I fit all the new things I need to fit onto this body and how's it going to behave? Wellness Warrior. Some of these changes that I'm going to do over time are absolutely going to make this bike more comfortable to ride, better functioning. But can I point out that all the while I'm doing this, I'm still using the bike. And so there are still things that are going to get damaged on the bike again. So I'm repairing, I'm rebuilding, I'm doing all kinds of things over the next few years. And then I'm going to keep doing those things. Do we see where that by not starting with the right bicycle, I set myself up for years of frustrating upgrades and repairs instead of the normal maintenance that I would have just done on a mountain bike had I just bought a mountain bike straight out the gate. And that that purchase and then build repair is going to probably cost me more than the mountain bike would have cost me in the beginning. And this is where some information that we have, but we don't pay attention to, aggravates me, but helps me to understand why we need to put ourselves in the best possible position as quickly as possible. So Dr. Bickman helped me to understand that we come into this world in a ketogenic state. Yes, babies are born into the world in a ketogenic state. And when we listen to companies and then wean our kids off of breast milk onto plant stuff, when their body was expecting animal stuff, we are actually introducing to our children a problem, right? Because we're feeding them a bunch of vegetation and a very small amount of lean meat. That's what we are encouraged to do in today's world And it sets our kids up because in the next year to 20 years of eating the wrong way, our bodies get inflamed, our bodies become overweight, our skin starts to have problems. Now, some problems are less dramatic than others, right? The metabolic damage that's happening internally can show itself rather quickly for some of us. For some of us, it takes a long time. For example, in my life, my metabolic damage that was obvious to me, and I probably have to go back and really look at all my baby pictures and all the things to see if there were other signs. But what I remember the most was the joint pain that hit me in my early 20s. Like hit me in a way that like, wow, now I'm limping. The joint pain was there on and off before that, but I mean, like I was limping in my early 20s. Do any kind of activity and I was out for a few days. And that kept going forward until my 40s when it really took me out. But I look at my family's history. How many young people in my family have eczema? How many young people in my family have more acne than makes sense? And skin issues that just are there from the youngest of young age. How many have allergies to specific things that they just can't eat? Yep. So we feed our kids the wrong thing their bodies cannot manage. And then we're constantly trying to figure out what combination of what can I eat to have the least amount of problem happening in our body, in our mind. Because some of the things are, my goodness, ADHD and all the different things that happen in our head, depression, anxiety. The list is long, Wellness Warrior. The list is long. And when we finally find keto or carnivore or even just low carb, if we're young enough, low carb will work, which is the testament to how much my body actually wants to be healthy. If I would have found low carb in my 20s, I probably would have reversed this and right? Because we see a lot of young people that just stop pushing too much junk food. Their weight regulates, their skin regulates, and things go back to normal. By the time we're in our early 20s, we're already hitting the gym trying to lose weight. We're already taking medications to combat skin issues, taking medications to combat ADHD, taking medications to combat anxiety and depression, and many issues that our youth are suffering from. I have had young people that I was visiting in the hospital for different types of health problems, ranging from cancer all the way to lung things. This is the life that our young people are living. And it's not just us older folk, is the point I'm trying to point out to you right now. And it's all influenced by the garbage that we are eating. Most of it because of the high carb processed foods that we eat, the ultra processed. But some of us are so sensitive that even the normal vegetation gets us. Why? It's decades of eating wrong, right? So our parents are giving birth to young kids now who are having the problem even sooner. Now, is it because the kids get junk food sooner? That could also be part of the story. A lot of people aren't like maniacal like me and don't let their kids have junk food before the age of 4. So some kids, I've seen babies with soda in their bottle. Not everybody is protecting their kids from the junk food. I'm going on a tangent. Let me get back on task here. Animal protein builds the body appropriately, Wellness Warrior. Animal protein. Dr. Eid pointed that out. Dr. Chafee is screaming about it violently. Dr. Bickman talks about it. Dr. Mason talks about it. Animal protein is what builds us the best. Now, yet some of these doctors still say, oh, but vegetation is okay. I'm going to be the person who's saying why. From a a mother looking at a situation and understanding the mistake that I made, that when my daughter used to push the vegetables away and only wanted to eat the meat, that I pushed the vegetables thinking, but they're healthy. You have to eat them. I can't correct that mistake anymore. But if I could put the idea in one of your head, and then you end up and start your family and put it in your kid's head, then maybe we move forward with the next generation that understands that we don't ever need to eat a carbohydrate because we do best on meat, poultry, fish, and eggs, and some dairy if we want that. So I feel like I'm in that position to just point out that I don't get it. I don't get why we keep saying, oh, but plants are okay. And if you can tolerate them, put them. And I really go back to the reasons that I listed above. We do it because how will I go out and eat around these people who are eating all this fun stuff and not eat the fun stuff? I'm going to look weird. I'm going to look strange, right? People are going to be like, what's wrong with her? Why doesn't? And guess what? I do it, Wellness Warrior. I go out and I get to the restaurant and I order some meat and I say, hey, don't put the vegetables on the plate. I'm only going to throw them away. I don't even want to see them on my plate. I'll actually send it back. I'm allergic to all vegetables. That's what I say in restaurants, especially restaurants that don't know me yet. And by the way, I want 2 meals, just the meat though. How many pieces? And I make sure I did clarify how many pieces is in one, how many ounces is that? And then I do my calculations. I need 2 plates of that. Thank you. Why am I doing that? Well, because my body only needs meat. And if I'm going out to a meal and I'm going to order this food and I'm going to eat this food, I don't want things on my plate that I'm not going to eat. I want the thing on the plate that I'm going to eat. And I'm willing to pay for the thing on the plate that I'm going to eat. I know not everybody can do that. Well, that's not even true. Let me just rephrase that. Of course, everybody can do that. I know that everybody wants to do that. You don't want to look weird having a plate of meat in a restaurant where everybody else has vegetables on their plate, especially if the people sitting at the table with you aren't like you. But I'm trying to get you, Wellness Warrior, to look at why you are even focusing on that. And I think it's because the majority of people around us are not carnivore or keto. Now, if you're keto, you can get away with eating at a restaurant much more easily because, first of all, you're not disgusted to have vegetation on your plate. So that's okay. But second of all, the reason I think that people on keto can get away with this more easily is that you can order meat and a side of whatever vegetables or whatever kind of salad that you actually enjoy. And most restaurants, you're going to figure that out. And most restaurants, when people look at you, that meal looks normal enough. My meal doesn't look normal enough, at least not for a woman, anyways, because heaven forbid a woman only eats meat, right? I'm not having a dainty little salad. Okay, I can't remember if I've ever had just a salad for supper or lunch, but this is the idea that we have. And it's what makes trying to eat healthy when we're out surrounded by people who eat garbage so hard because we feel like center of attention. But here's what's interesting, Wellness Warrior. People don't care. People don't care. We think that people are paying attention to us. They're paying attention to their plate. Why? We said the answer to this earlier. We just weren't paying attention. The people at the table around you are addicted to carbohydrates. They're not looking at your plate. They don't care what's on your plate. They are focused on their plate and the fun, yummy thing. And by the way, while they're eating their plate, they're side-eyeing the dessert little plate picture, trying to figure out what am I having after this. They're not paying attention to you. Wellness Warrior. So that we can put down. We feel left out because they get to eat. They get to eat rice. How come I don't get to eat? Yes, you do get to eat rice. Wellness Warrior. You can eat whatever you want. This is why I'm making this video, because you end up eating the rice and you end up back in the bad situation. So it's not that they get to eat it and you don't. You don't have to feel left out. You absolutely could eat the thing. My question is, how do you feel the day after you ate the rice or the vegetables or the whatever? And maybe it's not a feel thing. See, for me, I'm lucky because I have violet syndrome. Again, for those of you who are new here, violet syndrome is the scenario that happens when the day or even the hours after I've eaten something that disagreed with my body, my joints resume hurting, which is why I started to say earlier, I healed my body. And I stopped and I said, no, because I'm not healed yet. When I eat the wrong thing, I'm in pain. I'm lucky that when I eat the wrong thing, I'm in pain. I appreciate my body every single day for giving me pain when I eat the wrong thing, because it's quick. It happens immediately. And then I can look back at what I had and go, oh, shoot. Okay. There was tomatoes in that. And I don't usually eat tomatoes. And fast forward, that's how I figured out I have a problem with nightshades, because a nightshade is right. So I figured it out because I ate enough different nightshades to go, oh my gosh, every time I eat this kind of what are those vegetables? But guess what happens when what happens to you is you get fat or you get tired or maybe your skin starts to, but that takes days. Well, by the time that the problem is happening, you're not able to say, oh, that thing I ate caused, it's too far away. And now you've got like days or of maybe sometimes weeks of data to try to sift through to figure out what happened. I'm off track. Why am I now? Maybe if you were tracking, you might be able to go back and look at it and see that maybe my carb count was too high. Or maybe you're going to be able to look and say like, oh, wait a minute. I bought that veg and then I ate it over the course of the week. And then the next week maybe that'll happen. But not everybody is that lucky. And if the thing that gets you doesn't happen fast enough, Wellness Warrior, again, I'm so happy to have violet syndrome. But if you don't have the situation that happens that quickly, and if it takes a bit of time for your situation to show itself, then you could be in the story where it takes days, it takes weeks. And then, and only then, do you start to see that, oh no. And now you're fighting with yourself because why? Because you let the thing back in, you got used to eating the thing again, and it feels like you're starting over. So I've started over once, as I alluded to at the very beginning of this video, when I let cashews, so nuts, cashews, back into my life. I can't even say I let them back into my life. I introduced them because they weren't part of my life before I started doing keto. I was told that cashews are an absolutely fine thing to eat. And so I let them into my life thinking that they're an absolutely fine thing to eat. Eventually, when I was being honest with myself, I realized when I was eating cashews, they actually tasted sweet. And I realized I was chasing. That's why I was overeating them. I was eating them. It tasted great. And I just kept going. And I kept going. And I kept going. And it's like, and I was overeating them. Like major league overeating them. Like chocoholic style overeating them. And I was like, Violet, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Okay. Sometimes, Wellness Warrior, we need to learn from our mistakes. That's reality. Every once in a while, something's going to happen and you're going to see it and be like, oh my goodness, that's why. All I'm asking you to do right now is when you see it and realize that's what, do something about it. here's the other problem that we live. We don't like to feel like failures. So I'll see the problem, but then not want to acknowledge the problem. I want to act like no, it's not really a problem. No, I could stop this at any time. I don't have to do this. I'm doing it because I want to. As my weight is going up, I'm doing this because I want to. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're doing it because you do not control the food. The food is controlling you. And until you accept that that's what's happening there, you're going to keep telling yourself that, oh, but I can control. No, you're not. And that's frustrating to you. Trust me, it's frustrating to all of us that this happens to because we don't like to feel like failures. That leads us to question, because I don't like to feel like a failure. I'm going to question, but why can't I just do what this person is doing like them and be thin like them? And again, you can't do that one. Why? Because your body chose to be overweight. Okay. But here's something for you to think about. The person who is overweight, right? The person whose body gave them, you are going to rise in weight. That's what your body gave you, which eventually my body did give me, by the way. Again, going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, I started off by saying that I was 80 pounds heavier. My body will eventually give me overweight. But if my body started off giving me something else, because mine gave me joint pain. So did you ever think to ask the person who doesn't have weight, now that you know that carbohydrates going into the body are toxic and our body with great speed and efficiency grabs those extra carbohydrates, pushes them to be used for energy, and well, not the ones coming in. Obviously, the ones coming in it can't grab for energy, but it takes some energy out of your blood to be used for energy so it can be replaced by the ones coming in, right? So there's a loop there. And put some of them in fat storage. Did you ever really stop and ask those people, but what symptom did you have to find out what they had because they weren't overweight? Because if you would have asked me, I would have said I had joint pain. I would have said I had fatigue and brain fog. Now, if you would have asked me, Violet, what was worse? Like if your body couldn't have taken away all the things, what would you have wanted it to take away? So let's go and say I'm doing my keto lifestyle, carnivore lifestyle. And for the next 20 years while my body is trying to heal, it could only take away one thing. What would I want my body to take away? Wellness wear would have been the joint pain. 1000%. I don't even hesitate. And keep in mind, I had brain fog that I didn't know about. And I think for a living. I was thinking clear enough to work. I wanted the pain to go away. I would have continued forward 80 pounds overweight. I wanted the pain to go away. I would have continued forward with the fatigue. I wanted the pain to go. The pain stopped my life. Now, if I would have learned that internally my heart was damaged, I would trade that for heart. Clearly. If I would have learned that internally my brain was going towards dementia, I would have traded the pain for brain. Heart versus brain, I don't know what I would do. I wouldn't be able to pick one. I would be in trouble. I need us all to understand that the world has vilified excess fat on the body. The world makes us feel like we're monumental failures because we're overweight. But I've learned that being overweight was the safest thing my body could do for me. I didn't even understand how much safer it was until it was in front of my face, until I had this data, Wellness Warrior. Why can't I be like everybody? I am like everybody else. Every person's body decides what it's going to do with the excessive amounts of carbohydrates that we are eating, the excessive amounts of seed oils that we are eating, the excessive chemicals that we let into our bodies. Each one of our bodies decides what it's going to do with this stuff to keep us alive for as long as possible, believing, so our body does this believing that we are going to find a way to get it away from this ridiculous poor source of sustenance. I can't even call it food. Sustenance. It's just keeping us sustained. And our body is believing that we're working hard to try to find real food, meat, fish, poultry. That's what Georgia said our body needs. If there was one thing you could buy, that's what she said to buy, Wellness Warrior. Meat, fish, poultry. That's what you buy. The Wellness Squad link is always down below because I understand that it's hard not to have people around you that think like you. I want you guys in there talking to each other. That's why the link is there. Yes, you get to talk to me. I get that part. I want you talking to each other because we need to have people that we can throw a message to that get it, that understand, first of all, that sometimes we struggle because we see the cookie, the chocolate, that used to be my thing, the whatever that's making, maybe your thing is actually bread, that I just want a sandwich. We see the stuff and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to stay on track. If we don't have people to talk to who get it, then we don't realize, Wellness Warrior, that we are actually just like everybody else. It's by talking to you guys that I know that I'm just like everybody. It's because Pat saw the benefit of what was happening with me and encouraged me to keep doing what I was doing at the beginning, even when he wasn't doing it, because he could see it's working. You're not limping anymore. We don't really understand that other people get it because we're not talking to the right people. Those people who are eating garbage might not be overweight, but there's something happening in their body, Wellness Warrior. How do I know that? How do I say that with such certainty? The body has to do something with those incoming carbs. It has to. I'd rather have the excess weight than the pain I had in my joints. Luckily for me, I don't need to choose. Why? Why don't I need to choose? Because when I figured out that it was keto lifestyle that helped me to not only heal my joints, but heal my addiction. That I can say is healed right now because I don't have any addictive anything's happening right now. And how can I even say that? So I want to share something with you that happened this weekend. It's funny that I'm talking about this topic, but maybe that's why I'm talking about this topic, because this happened this weekend. I went to a restaurant and I purchased some meat. It was a variety. And one of the pieces of meat, when I ate it, tasted sweet to me. And I decided not to have any more. I didn't chase. I didn't, right? I didn't, I just said, oh, nope, that one's sweet. I'm not having any more. Boop. I stopped eating it. Wellness Warrior. I am like everybody else. And by talking to you guys and understanding what caused you to chase, by watching all these doctors talk about what causes people to chase, by understanding myself and figuring out that, yeah, I could taste the sweet in those cashews. Whoa, wait a minute. That's weird. And wait a minute, if I really pay attention, yeah, pistachios kind of have a hint of something too. Help me to see peanuts. I could taste it too. Those things helped me to put those things down. I let myself see it because joint pain is not fun. Because feeling good is amazing. I love it. I love feeling good because running around and not being exhausted after feels great. Now, I do get tired, don't get me wrong. When I live a really hard day and my brain is working and I'm thinking a lot and whatever, at the end of the day, I am done. I'm exhausted. I'm finished. Yeah, that does happen to me. But then the next day I wake up and I'm ready for it again. I don't envy people who have damage to their organs or to their brain or to their whatever from eating garbage. And so therefore I don't envy people who are eating the garbage that might have them on that path, because I'm looking at them and I'm saying like, wow, you eat a lot of junk and you're not overweight. And my first thought goes to, what organ are you damaging? Especially if I don't see joint problems happening, what organ are you damaging? And it scares me because I know that the sugar is doing something, Wellness Warrior. And if you can't see the problem, if I don't see a skin rash, it means that the sugar is doing something internal. And that's not ever what we want. What we need to do is accept that plants are not helping our health. So when we reintroduce fruits or sweet vegetables, or heaven forbid, processed foods, we are actually stalling the progression of our health. And we might even be damaging the progression of our health. Yeah, that means sliding backwards. Yeah, that means reintroducing the problem. Yeah, that means reintroducing the chasing that you've been doing for so long that you finally got out of, and you bring it back. That feeling of being not in control. And for many of us, we end up heavier than we were before. Some of us are lucky. We don't end up back to that highest of high weight. Sometimes we're able to kind of keep ourselves in this place. But why? Why keep myself here when I know that if I focus my energy on eating correctly, I can get myself back to a healthier weight? And if I'm at my healthy weight and my body's not fighting with putting crap away every single day, the garbage that I'm eating, it can put all of its energy into healing me. All of it, One Sawyer. Right? If the only thing is coming into my body, poultry, meat, fish, and eggs, all of my body's attention can go on healing whatever is internal that needs to be healed. But if I allow myself to eat off plan, if I allow myself to allow those toxins from those veg, right? What did Dr. Eid point out? Or maybe it was Dr. Chafe. I can't remember. Maybe it was both of them. They might have both said it at different points in time. I even believe Sally Norton says it in her book. When you have those flavors that are bitter or spicy or like all these flavors that hit us hard, it's because our mouth is reacting, because any other animal would have run away from that. We keep eating. We keep eating because we're smarter than our brain, right? Than our body, right? Our body is saying, no, stop. And we keep eating. We know better. Starting over because we didn't acknowledge the fact that we can't control our addiction doesn't make sense. But it's what happens to every single one of us because we are lied to. And that first stage is called keto flu. I'm saying it again. I want to burn this into your mind. It's not keto flu, it is withdrawal. There's no way to moderate your addiction. As soon as you touch the thing that's got you, it's going to pull you back in. So anything that tastes sweet is dangerous. And anything that's high in carb is dangerous because that's the two avenues we have of getting that dopamine pathway lit up. It tastes sweet, lit up. The carb count gets past a certain threshold, lit up. It's part of the reason why some people can manage keto and get themselves out of that chasing state. And other people cannot manage it because the threshold for you to of carbohydrate intake, so the amount of carbs coming in that light up your pathway might be as low as 2 wellness warrior, 2 grams of carb. Yes, it could be that low. Boom, you're chasing. But things change. They absolutely change when we accept that addictive substances need to stay out of our lives. And that's why I've linked videos down below and on the screen, so in the description, that are going to help you to get your addiction under control. So you're going to click on that link after the live stream and watch those videos. But right now, I want to take your questions and I want to help everybody. I'm looking for questions that are going to help me to understand where you are, what's going on. And by the way, have you ever been in this situation? So you start off by I'm going to run through as many as I can. I don't see any QQQs high. Pat is saying that sugar addiction, for me, bread always been a struggle. So I'm just looking quickly if I see any cues, but I don't see any cues. So I'm just going to go in order. And as the cues come up, I'll get to them in a bit. And I feel like although bread wasn't my kryptonite, Pat, what I will say is I do remember as a small child, when there wasn't junk in the house, making toast and having that as the junk thing is the fun thing that I was about to eat. So it's high in carb, and that's all. Now I understand that's all that matters. So Amanda, it's great that you're here. Love the interview with Chafee. Thank you. And my videos are an incredible resource. I appreciate that. Good morning, Laura. I'm glad to see you here. So I'm in active addiction with food. Okay. I use it to cope with stress that your under husband left. Oh, I'm all alone with 4 small children. Okay, I get it. It's not stress I can change. Nothing is accessible as food to cope. Okay, so here's what I'm going to point out to you, Amanda. And I hope that this helps you to change something. I'm going to point this out. So if I know that I'm eating garbage, which is giving me a spike, which is giving me a high in the moment and helping me to feel good in this moment, which is true, but then I'm going to crash and I'm going to feel horrible. Number one, those 4 small children that you're caring for, when you crash, have to deal with mommy who crashed. That's not good for you or them because you're not being the best version of yourself that you want to be for those lovely little people that are happy to have mommy, right? They're happy to have you. They want to have fun with you, and you want to have fun with them. So part 1 to this is recognizing that if I feed myself properly, I'm going to have sustained energy. Number 2, You're saying that you're using food to cope. But are you using food to cope or are you using garbage to cope? My next suggestion to you is if you just cook meals, Amanda, that are in line with, I'm assuming maybe you were doing keto, in line with your keto lifestyle that you like. So pick the stuff you like and that the kids will eat, and you make those meals, right? That might mean that you're making keto pizza and like keto hamburgers, right? Like, so you're making hamburgers and you're eating lettuce leaves for the bun. Make the things you like right now to get yourself back on track and keep yourself on track, but make sure that everything falls in those keto, um, within those keto guidelines to get yourself back to thinking clearly. Because once you're thinking clearly, you're going to feel better. And hopefully that some things can start to regulate again. But the best part about all that is that when you get yourself back there, stay there, and you're going to see that your life with your kids is going to be what you're going to be able to focus on, and that's going to make you happy. Because the truth of the matter is, you and your spouse breaking up, so you and their dad breaking up, doesn't change the fact that you had them because, well, you had them, and that's what you wanted. That's what they want because they want mommy, right? In my saddest of sad times, my daughter wanted to be with me, right? She didn't want to be not with me in my saddest of sad times, right? The number one reason that I was often in pain is because why? Because I was playing with her, doing fun things with her, because I knew, and I still know that that's what she wanted. She wanted to do stuff with me. And I was willing to put myself in pain to be able to do things with her. But I'm also very happy that today we go climbing and I'm not in pain. So part one is feed yourself properly so that you can get to part two where we are engaging, having fun, and you're doing the thing that you want to do, which I know is take care of your four amazing children. All right. And by the way, the other piece of this puzzle is that while you're feeding them the healthy foods that you're also eating, I would really encourage you, if you can, to even cut back on the amount of junk food they're eating by half. They'll be easier to manage, right? If you even just cut it in half, they'll be easier to manage. You'll have less temptation around you, and it's going to make the household run better. So I really hope that this is helpful to you. And I understand that you're right. You can't change that your husband isn't in the home. But what you can change is how you're feeding yourself, and therefore the focus you have for you and your kids, right? Because, okay, here's the other piece of the puzzle. If I'm self-soothing with food, I'm not letting myself be sad about the breakup. And maybe even though you might know it needed to happen, you might still be sad about it. Even though you might know it needed to happen, you might still find being alone with the four kids and actually having to do everything yourself really hard. So a lot of the time we know that the breakup needs to happen, but there's always that part of our heart where we've wished that we could have made it work. And we need to let ourselves be sad about that for a day or so and then move on and be with the little people that want you to be there. I hope that that is helpful. What age does low carb not work? I don't know that that is a thing. So I feel like low carb can work depending on what you are comparing it to. And what do I mean by that? Well, and I'm not throwing an age here because age doesn't matter. If I have any kind of metabolic anything caused by food, right? So it's not some toxic substance that's spilled on me or something. Like if I have any kind of metabolic anything that's caused by food, I feel like I'm talking about a superhero there for a second, but then eating low carb is better than standard diet. Always. So that's step one. And I think this is why I say that any young person who's showing typical good health, so let's say that they're normal weight, normal everything, skin is normal, like developing mentally and physically appropriately, any young person, if they just do low carb, at the minimum is delaying any problems that they might have in their life multiple years. And if they do low carb and enjoy it and decide to get to keto numbers, they could maybe evade any medical at all. They could. And the more that they keep their carb numbers under control, the more chance they have of evading problems. Because as we know, carbohydrates in high amounts are toxic in the body. As we know, plants have chemicals in them, phytochemicals, that are toxic in the body. We know this. So that's what I would say. I would say there's no age at which I would say it's not helpful. Sometimes we need more. Um, oh, there's a conversation happening there. That's not for me. Hey, Houston, Texas. Hello. But I do want to say hello, Stone Rider. But that conversation wasn't for me, apparently. Okay. Um, Stone Rider, hello. From Houston, Texas. Oh, it's the same person. Hi. Um, more conversations. So let's see, Laura, and my daughter would make asparagito face or asparagus face when she was a baby, and I fed her blended asparagus, and now I understand why. I didn't know. Dr. Chaffee is so right. She didn't like it. I really feel it's really funny to me because most people are under the impression that children like veg, but we don't realize like from what age we really started pushing these things on our kids, and the fact that we've been just pushing them to eat garbage for years. And and I don't know what it will look like if I never gave my kid that stuff. I don't know. I know she didn't want it at the beginning, but I'm curious to see at some point someone raising their child this way. What happens when that kid goes to school and sees these other things? Like, do they have the reaction that I currently have when I put something sweet in my mouth, which is like, oh, no. Like, that's my reaction now. And depending on if I accidentally put something that's actually sweet. So I remember the first time that I put a strawberry. So I knew strawberries could be sweet. That wasn't the point. Um, Before I understood the true impact of sweet on health, and I was just doing keto at the very beginning stages. And my hip was feeling much better by this point. I was in a great place. I think I still had weight to lose though. We were on vacation and Pat cut up some strawberries, and Pat wasn't keto yet, even at that point. So this is like really early days. I tasted some strawberry, and all the sweet that started to like fight with my mouth. And everybody was saying how bland the strawberries were, and I was overpowered. And the other piece of the puzzle though was that I was like, oh my gosh, you guys can have mine because whoa, that's just too much. And then when they tasted it, they were all like, it's the same as ours. I don't think that my daughter ever would have changed her mind on these things had I not kept pushing and forcing and pushing and forcing. And it just frustrates me to know that, because my reaction to that strawberry was that of disgust. And even the things that I find sweet today, like cashews, most people, including myself years ago, would never have said that that was sweet. So very interesting to me. Pat is agreeing with something that someone said. I'm not really sure what, but yeah, people love fruits because fruits have a lot of sugar. So Ian Stewart, hello. Cashews are hard to just have a tiny bit, also high in oxalates. I didn't know that they were high in oxalates because I gave them up way before I needed to worry about that. But thank you for sharing that, Ian, because I think that will definitely help somebody. So if you were looking for a secondary reason to get cashews out of your life, Ian just gave us another one. And Ange says, hello, Ange. I don't think I saw your name yet. I don't believe the cravings ever go away, even on keto or carnivore. Trust me, they do. At least for me, they have. And I think the thing about cravings going away, Ange, I'll tell you this, you need to be away from the thing long enough. Part of the reason that I think people get pulled back in is that we, first of all, believe that once I've gotten past my situation and I'm eating normally, somehow moderation is something I should be able to do. That just isn't reality. If you reintroduce the problem will have you again and start pulling you along, and you're back in the addiction story. That's number one. But number two is that if I'm not far enough away from it, and that means I keep touching it every once in a while, then of course it will feel like my my cravings never go away because they're not actually ever fully going away. I keep indulging them. I can tell you that I go grocery shopping and I go to like the pharmacy and all kinds of places where they sell chocolate right at the counter. Chocolate bars that I absolutely used to love. They were my favorite ones. To give you some examples, I'm a caramel girl. That still is sold till today, right? All those like those ones that have nuts and fruits in them. Again, that those were my jam back in the day. They are still sold today, and they are sold at the cash here in Canada in Montreal, right where you can just grab them. And guess what? Violet never does. I never even blink on them. I walk by them to get into the store, to walk through the store. I don't avoid that aisle. In the beginning, when I first started, I would avoid that aisle and I would have trouble at the cash. I don't avoid the aisle any longer. I can walk through. I can purchase chocolate for somebody else and not eat it. I don't care. Halloween happened, stuff came into the house, and then I end up throwing a bunch of stuff away because, as I've told you a million times, my daughter wants things and then she'll leave them there forever. And then I'm like, okay, this is stupid. And I throw it away. All of that to say that I haven't had chocolate at this point. I would probably be able to go back, and I'm saying not chocolate anything. So I'm going to say even chocolate powders and all the. If I go back, when was the last time I had anything that had any hint of anything chocolate on it? Maybe 2 years. I'd probably have to go back 2 years because chocolate covered, like dusting of chocolate on something or something that I might have had. I feel like there might have been something, a keto bar or something. So I want to be full transparency. I'm going to say probably 2 years or less. I'm sorry, 2 years or more. Sorry, right? But at that point, you have to stop and think like, what's the bigger point here? I don't even blink at these things. I don't even, that was my thing. I don't even blink. Now, there's other ways for us to indulge our addiction. So let's talk about that. Because theoretically, I could just be, oh, the other thing that I used to do that I haven't done in forever is have cheese crisps. You know, like when you put cheese on a tray and you bake it, da da da. And I started to realize that that was me. That was another way I was getting carbohydrates in. So I haven't done that in forever. Now I had cheese the other day as part of a meal, but it was a normal amount. Like I just had some cheese, and before that, when was the last time I had cheese? Months. I just felt like having that meal, and that meal, the way that I make that particular meal was that there's cheese, so I had it. Again, is there chasing? No. And as a matter of fact, I made a very similar meal to the one that has cheese yesterday, and I didn't have any cheese. Again, why? Because there's no chasing. Wellness warrior, you don't have to have cravings. It's not something that has to be with you, but we do need to understand that those cravings are with us because sometimes, somehow, we are either still touching it or we're telling ourselves a story that says it has to be there. And so, therefore, it's there. Right? If I keep telling myself that this is just who I am and this is just how I see food and that's the story that I'm giving my brain, then that's what's going to happen. I'm going to keep, every time I see something, I'm going to be telling myself some version of I shouldn't have that, which is going to make me want it even more. I don't even tell myself I shouldn't have it. Why? Because there's no idea in my head to have it. I eat healthy food. And that's what I say whenever I'm hungry. My thought is, what am I eating? And I'm thinking food, meat, fish, poultry, eggs. And actually, I usually stop at eggs because I rarely have dairy anymore. But dairy is on my list. So it's not like I don't say, but I often stop at eggs because most of the time I don't do the dairy. My brain is thinking those four things. But every once in a while, dairy will pop up and I'll be like, okay, yeah, dairy, I can do dairy today. But that's the level of thought, wellness warrior. I really want you, Ange, not to have to be fighting this every day. And the best way to have that happen is to allow yourself to move forward and recognize that and figure out, how am I actually keeping it in my life? And you might inadvertently be keeping it in your life just by saying, I shouldn't have it, I shouldn't have it, I shouldn't have it. That might be how you're keeping it in your life. It's very tricky, this thing, that we think by avoiding something we're doing ourselves a favor. No, I walk through the aisles with the stuff that I used to eat. I don't avoid these things. I go to grocery stores and malls where they have fresh popcorn. And over time, the smell stopped bothering me. And eventually it started to smell perfumey to me. It changed. Why? Because my idea was, even though that smelled amazing, it's not food. And when I see these things or smell these things, or right, the thought that I give myself is exactly, that's not food. So when I'm thinking to eat, I'm thinking meat, fish, poultry, eggs, occasionally dairy, and everything else. I say to myself, that's not food. So I hope that some of these are going to help you guys to figure out how to make it different. Ian, I feel like you're having a conversation with somebody else. There's a theory of going by taste doesn't work in that situation. So the theory of going by taste, yeah. If you like sweet, like I hate doing that. If I'm addicted to something, I can't say that I like it. Like alcoholics don't like alcohol. They have to have it. And so that's like a misspeak or misnomer to say I like something that I'm addicted to. So that's why I don't say it. If I have to eat it, then it's a problem. And you go on to say, I partic I partic I partially emphasize, and but I only get the sweet cravings after I have my main daily one meal. See, I don't even, so I have my one meal, and my one meal is large enough that I'm so satisfied that, yeah, there's no space for dessert. So there isn't dessert. But if I was going to have a dessert, it would be at the end of the meal. So I do agree with you, Ian, that if you're going to have it, that's where you should have it. But I'm going to point out that for everybody doing it, if that's what you're doing, you've just explained why it's still there. Right? Like, so at some point, I'm really encouraging every wellness warrior to take a decision. Because if you get annoyed and frustrated with the times that you are craving garbage away from your meals, if that actually bothers you and you would like it to stop, then the thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that you give yourself the best possibility of it not being a problem, by making sure that you actually um, eat the healthy, like, eat the healthy thing, and put down the thing that makes you crave, if that makes sense. So I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna leave that there. Let's see. Laura says, oh, sorry, I don't think I read this one. Sadly, there is a vegan named Swaz on the Unnatural Vegan channel, and she made a short that Dr. Baker showed. She said her joint pain and aches in her 30s are due to aging and pregnancies. Okay, I think you have more to say. Let me just go down here. Not normal to have aches and pains in your 30s. At least acknowledge your lack of animal protein and fat may be a contributor to that. Okay, so can I just, so there's a conversation that says that we um because we're old, we have joint pain. Because we're old, you have wrinkles, and we gain more weight. That's another one I heard, because we're old. I am currently 6 years older than when I started all this. I'm lighter than I was. I have more energy than I had. My pain in my joints and my body is gone. I eat more and my weight is stable. So, for clarity, I eat more than I ate at any point during the time that I was classified as obese. More is coming in, more energy is coming in, if we're going to look at it from that perspective, than I was eating back then. But I will say, in general, I eat more meat in general than I was eating back then. And I weigh the same that I weighed when I got to my goal, and maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit less. So, is it true that as we age, that we're supposed to go up in weight? That doesn't seem to be true. We go up in weight because we're eating something that's causing us to go up in weight. Or we go up in weight because we're working out and we're building muscle, and that's causing us to go up in weight. Or we go up in weight because we're retaining water because we did something right. So, like, we go up in weight for a reason, not because you're a day older. We have pain because something went wrong, not because of age, or right. And we also have pain because our body is going to deteriorate. So I can't say that there's never going to be a scenario where we don't have pain when we are older. But it's not because we are older. It's because our body deteriorated in one way, shape, or form. And there are some people who are much older than me, by the way. And to look at what's going on with them, appear healthier than me. Now, I'm much healthier than I was 6 years ago. That matters, Wellness Warrior, because theoretically, if we just listen to what we are told, I should not be healthier today than I was 6 years ago. The trajectory is supposed to be decline. And yet, I'm healthier. So, what does all that mean? It means that you can eat properly and help your body to regain something that it lost. Can I do that indefinitely? No, of course not. That would be, as much as I would like that to be true, that would be crazy, right? You can't do that indefinitely. But if you give your body the right nutritional, so nutrition, the right food, if you give your body actual food, let me put it like that, because we keep calling this other stuff food. I want to stop calling it stuff food. If we actually give our body food, our body will do what it's supposed to do, which is build us and repair us and help us to be in a good situation. If we give our body garbage, it's going to build a garbage version of us. And that's just what's going to happen. So, this person that's going around saying that, they have joint pain and aches due to multiple pregnancies, could part of that be reality? Sure, pregnancies can be stressful on the body. Does that mean that they shouldn't have recovered, though? If they were eating properly, they probably would have. So Pat is saying that I was encouraging ants to go full in and eliminate the sources of carb. Have you tried carnivore? I mean, I honestly feel like, especially if we're in a moment of craving, going carnivore is a great way to get myself back on track. Even if I tend to do a keto way of eating, doing a carnivore reset can help us to then be in line with our keto way of eating. So I thank you, Pat, for offering that idea. Hello, Nicola Val Chandler. I only eat chicken and turkey, no beef, pork, seafood, or dairy. How can I do this diet? By eating chicken and turkey. So there are lots of people that just eat beef, and that's all they eat. That's fine. I mean, I don't know if you're not eating beef, pork, seafood, and dairy for religious reasons, or if just they don't do well with you. But for whatever reason that you choose to only eat chicken and turkey, then eat chicken and turkey. If it's a flavor thing, if it's a flavor thing and you don't have a reason to avoid the other things, let me tell you something that's really fun. Because I used to be a person that, like you would have said, I don't eat seafood. And I now eat seafood. I don't eat it every day, but when it's time to have it, and actually, I was thinking about the fact that I would love to challenge myself, and maybe that's going to be a challenge at some point. Maybe next month I might do it, where I at least have seafood once a week. Like just to pick a day and I have some fish or scallops or some kind of seafood, some kind of something once a week minimum. And why I want to do that is just because I know that getting like there's a little bit of different stuff you get from seafood that you don't get from the land animals. And I would love to try to get that. So yeah, I'm thinking that I want to do that. But my point was, Nicola, that actually I had a friend in school that was named Nicola. But the reason that I wanted to say this is that in my um, early days, I still didn't like fish. And so whenever we were, and especially when we did the carnivore challenge, I think like Pat had made fish one of the times, and I was just like, oh no. And I avoided the fish. And I avoided fish for a very, very long time. And then a few months ago, maybe it's a year ago by this point. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure. Pat, you're in there. You can let me know if it's been a year. But he convinced me to try some of his salmon. Just try. Now, to be fair, every once in a while I would have a piece of shrimp when we go to the restaurant. He would force me to have a piece of shrimp. Um but like he's like, just try the salmon. I'm telling you, I'm telling you it tastes good. And honestly, when I tried it, I had allowed enough time for my taste buds to reset. And guess what? It actually tasted delicious. And the next time he made it, I let him make me a whole serving and I actually ate the whole thing. And the truth is that when I do cook salmon, I do eat the whole thing. Like I do make a full serving now and I do have it and it's fine. I don't know why I don't have it in rotation more often. And yeah, I need to change that. And maybe when my daughter gets back, because she likes salmon, I might just make some salmon. She's on a little trip right now, and so maybe I'll do that for us and we'll just have salmon for supper, and that'll make her excited to eat with us. So that could be a cool thing that we do. But you can totally do a keto lifestyle or even a carnivore lifestyle um with turkey and chicken. I don't see why that would be a problem. You said, do you not eat eggs? And you didn't say you don't eat eggs, so you also would have eggs. So you have like a very three very good animal sources of protein that you can have. And my only thing for you, Nicola, by the way, is that if you're eating chicken and turkey, there's a tendency to want to focus on the chicken breast. I would really encourage you to eat the fattier portion of the chicken and turkey when you're going to do this. So the leg and the thigh and to eat the skin because you're going to need the fat. But let me know. Come back and let me know how things go for you. I'm really curious to know. And Ange is, yes, Patrick, I have tried carnivore, but not long period of time. I'll go a few days and then want green. So I'm going to back up again and say, I'm reading what you're saying. I would go a few days and then want green beans or salad or something. So want versus chase. I'm asking you to look at possibly that might be what's happening. But at the end of the day, you don't have to be carnivore, by the way. If you do well on green beans and salad and some cheese, it's not about chasing it. It's just make sure you stay within your numbers, right? So theoretically, if your health that you're trying to improve is improving, stay the course, Ange. Just eat your salads and your beans and just make sure that they're in the right numbers. I don't see a problem with that. There's no reason that someone who is doing well on keto should force carnivore. But what I will encourage you to do is whatever the extra things that are causing you to chase are, I would put those down. My thoughts or cravings that I fight are peanut butter. Yeah, I would stop Lily stevia, chocolate, and seasonal fruits. Yeah, those are the things that you would be well advised to put down. Even though I don't eat them, I'm always thinking it. So if you're not eating them, okay, it's the thinking about them that's causing you to think about them. And it's like, it's one of these things where we constantly are putting ourselves in a struggle without realizing we're putting ourselves in the struggle. And like right now, what I'm thinking to myself is, for example, Lily's stevia chocolate. I'm trying to think, what's the scenario where you would actually see that? Peanut butter, we see it everywhere. Seasonal fruit and nuts, I totally get it. But the stevia chocolate, like where would I possibly see that? So even that one, if I allow myself to say that every time I think about Lily stevia chocolate, I'm going to play a game, or I'm going to do like, if I just do something that's positive for myself, I'm going to go for a walk. I don't know. Like, how would I allow myself to entertain myself rather than letting myself be entertained of ideas of eating this thing that I used to eat? Because that's what's happening to you, Ange. You're still interacting with it because you think that that's going to help you to have fun versus whatever it is that you happen to be doing. And maybe you just don't want to be working right now, or maybe you just don't want to be doing whatever the thing is that you're actually doing right now that you're not finding fun. But I'm encouraging you, rather than spend time daydreaming about these things that you're telling me you're not having. If I'm not having them, then it's not an all I really need to do thing, but what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it every single time, no matter what, every single time that I think about one of those things, I'm going to acknowledge to myself that something's bothering me right here. I'm not happy with something. And my brain is saying, oh, this would make you happy, Violet, if you had some nuts. Right? Because that's what used to happen to me, by the way, Wellness Warrior. If I had a hard day, a bad day, something went wrong, I had an argument with somebody or whatever, those would be the days that I would want nuts. And then that would catalyze this trajectory of me overeating stuff that I shouldn't be overeating. Right? And when I'm happy and fine, not even a thought in my head. And I feel like that's probably what's happening to you, Ange, is that you need to look at what's really bothering me when I start thinking about these things, solve that, right? And maybe you're lonely, maybe you're bored, but solve whatever it is. I hope that is helpful. I had fatty liver from high carb diet, and nurse told me it was normal due to standard American diet. By the way, this nurse was overweight and had back issues as well. So the nurse knew the reason was the standard American diet, gives you the information, which I'm saying good for her, but then is unable to change it for herself. And this is when we're talking about when we understand part of the story, but not the whole story. I think that this nurse, very likely, unless they just learned it, very likely understood that it was the standard diet, but maybe didn't understand the element that because I'm addicted, I keep eating these foods, even though I know they're bad for me. And it could also be, by the way, that maybe that nurse was even heavier before you met her. And that was that nurse's way on the way down to a better weight. That's also a possibility. And I hope that that was the case, that maybe they were in the process of healing and decided to share that information with you. Because do you notice, Wellness Warrior, that when people learn this information, they want to jump around and scream it from the rooftops and just let everybody know that this is what really is the healthy thing to do, and this is the way that you could heal yourself? And so maybe that's what it was happening. Maybe you just met this person at the beginning of their journey. I hope so. Hello, Amanda. Are there carbs in chicken? Because this yourself chicken says 3 carbs per serving. So there could be carbohydrates in chicken if you're buying pre-seasoned chicken. Usually the carbs in most meats is coming from the seasonings. But I would trust the package. If you bought something and it's telling you there's carbohydrates in it, that's because there is. Um, Now, if you're in an app and you find that it says there's carbohydrates, then my guess would be the recipe. They are showing you how much. So if you make the recipe that they made, so whether they got it from a store or a restaurant or whatever, like that recipe has that much carbs in that much of a serving. So that's what I would say about that. And yeah, I agree with Pat that it shouldn't have any carbs, but the spices, exactly. Spices, sauces, organ meats. I didn't even think about that. Thank you, Pat. There could be organ meats in there. Organ meats have some carbs in them. So if it was like chicken liver, for example, then it could have carbohydrates, or chicken kidney, or blah, 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 like all those things. Okay, thank you. Yes, keto flu is withdrawal, but no one wants to talk about that. Yep. Thank you, Amanda. So I'm trying to see. Hello, Lynn. How are you doing? Nice to see you were able to pop in. Let's see. Love your vids. It's great info. Think on. However, what I like most is what to eat in a day. Yes, I know the carnivore foods, but how much fat and protein is always a concern. How much fat and protein? Well, one of the things that I learned is that if you're doing carnivore, which I'm just trying to think about, I don't think you said you're doing carnivore, so that would be a no. But the thing is, it's not about, it's hard. There's so many people throwing percentages around. Even Dr. E threw percentages around. She's talking about 70 to 80%. And there's all these numbers. And to me, like, you could definitely check that. So if you track your foods, and that would be the best way to be able to see how much fat you're getting in. Just track everything you're eating. And then that way, and so you have to be honest. Like, if I ate the chicken with the skin, then I track chicken with the skin. If I ate a pork chop and there was fat on it, then I say visible fat eaten. These are guesstimates, though. And so part of my concern about trying to tell people how much fat to eat is that I could tell you, and it's reality, I eat all the fat that is on any meat that I eat, even chicken, and I don't like the feeling of chicken fat. Like, the feeling of chicken fat actually grosses me out in my mouth. I just swallow it down. I don't even chew it if I can get away with it. I don't like the feeling of chicken fat. However, I eat it because why? Because I know it's healthy. I say all of that. Every butcher is slightly different in the way that they're going to cut off the fat off of the meat that we're getting. So even if I tell you to eat this amount of fat or that amount of fat, and even if you say, and if I say to you, always eat all the fat that's on the meat that you're having, which I do every single time. There's not a time I don't do it, Wellness Warrior. It still doesn't change the fact that it's very, very highly likely, not even a little bit, highly likely, that when I put my numbers into the tracker, I'm still not getting an accurate count. So I prefer being carnivore because I can do the thing that Dr. Chafee helped me to kind of put a label to that was happening to me that I didn't quite understand. I can just eat until my body says, stop it. And that's what I do. It's funny because sometimes while I'm still eating, Pat will be like, oh, ha ha ha. Do I have to tell you, like, Gabriel, that? And it's like, no, it's like, because I didn't get the feeling yet. If I didn't get the feeling yet, I'm going to keep going. That's what I do. And then I get the feeling, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's enough. Right? So I can't tell you how much fat because I don't know how much fat. I know how much fat my body is looking for. I know when I get the feeling. I don't know when you're going to get the feeling. But if you're eating a carnivore diet, there's this moment where it just stops feeling right to keep eating. It just, right? A few bites before, I'm like, yeah, This is still good. Yeah, this is all right. And then all of a sudden it's just like, and sometimes I have a physical like, nope, can't do this anymore. Sometimes it's more subtle, but there's a feeling that happens that's just like, stop it. And I stop. So, Ange, I don't know more than that. Now, if you're doing keto, it's different because on keto, I know I could keep going because I'm eating veg, and I know I've seen it. I've seen where the portion of meat that I can get into me when I was doing keto versus so fatty meat. Let me be very specific. The portion of fatty meat that I was able to eat when I was doing a keto diet versus when I was doing carnivore, the same portion of fatty meat, the fat was overwhelming and I couldn't do it. But somehow on keto, I ate it. That did shock me. But I've heard it said before, when you eat veg, you can get more in. Dr. Bickman said it actually in a video, and that caught my attention. He said, when you eat more veg, you can get it in. You can get more meat in. And that was the only time he said that really he felt people need to be careful. He said, if you're just eating meat, yeah, follow your satiation. But he is like, if you're eating vegetation, you probably should know how much you're eating. And so this is where I've been much more on this in line with Dr. Westman. And I still feel like his instructions are good. But I do see the two ways of eating is very different. When you are doing keto, it is so important for you to stop eating when you are no longer hungry, not full. You're not waiting for that feeling. When you stop feeling hungry, you probably shouldn't be eating anymore. Your body probably has enough. And that's what I was doing when I was doing keto. It's not what I'm doing now. So this is part of what I'm saying is I can't tell you how to eat like me because, so, and I don't know what veg you like. And so pick the veg you like, eat them. As long as they don't go over your 20 or 18 or 15 or whatever your number happens to be. Again, part of the reason I can't tell people what to eat because my number was actually 18. I had to have 18 grams of carbs or less, or I was kicked out of ketosis. You need to know what your number is. I can't give you my number. Lily Patricia Sanchez, hello, living in Miami. Nice to meet you. Doing keto carnivore for 4 months now, down 17 pounds. My doctor halved my blood pressure medication and my sugar is stable. First of all, congratulations. Getting our getting our health under control is so much more important than our weight. And I feel like you're getting both, which is terrific, but the medication, by the way, getting off of the medication is going to help you even more because what a lot of people don't even realize is that a lot of medications cause us to gain weight. And so we're constantly fighting ourselves on so many different levels because we're the foods we're eating that could be causing weight gain. But then even when we're doing super well, the medication that's pushing weight gain. So I'm just happy to hear that your medication has been halved. Hopefully you'll be able to have it again in a few months and then eventually be off of it and just live your life and enjoy the rest of your days as healthily as possible. So that's cool. Let's see, what do I have here? Violet, I have all of the symptoms that you just mentioned at 55 years old. And this is why you're here trying to, brain, joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, high blood pressure, and more. This is why eating healthy matters so much. And I really do encourage you to figure your way out of doing your healthy diet. Like you need to figure it out though. What you're going to eat is going to be your diet plan that's tailored to you. The number one thing that I'll point out is that if you would try to force yourself to eat, can you imagine, Pat, you're still in here, Pat? Can you imagine if I would have tried to force myself to do fish in order to do keto? I wouldn't have lasted probably a month. But now that I'm okay with eating, like now that I'm healthy and my mouth is changed, I can eat fish. So I always encourage everybody, look at your current diet and just remove the high carb foods and try to keep everything else as similar as you can at the beginning. Get used to this way of eating, get used to having less sugar in your diet, get used to all of that. And as you get used to it, then you can add more I want to say upgrades, but you can like improve over time, right? You could just keep doing more things and more things and more things until you get to a place where you just feel amazing. For me, that landed in carnivore, but not everybody lands in carnivore. Some people end up feeling amazing under keto, right? I think the amount of damage that you have is what's going to determine where you end up to. Like, I feel like I had so much damage. My joint pain starting when I was only 23. I feel like I had so much damage that, well, first of all, I want to heal as quickly as possible. And in my mind, taking in the fewest amount of toxins will hopefully lead to the best and fastest and swiftest repair. So that's kind of where I am. But the other thing is that I feel good. I like feeling good. I'd like, listen, these guys were trying to harm me, right? That's why I have this t-shirt on. Like, I find this, well, I do find it funny, but these guys were trying to harm me. These nightshades were after me. Maybe not, they couldn't run, but like every time I put them in my, oh, okay, maybe I was after them and then they were after me. But I now know that eating these things was not doing me any kind of good. And so I will no longer do it. And I'm encouraging everybody, just, do the things that make your life easier. The mentality about veg being harmful is so hard to get past. I understand the idea of it, but I still find it difficult not to eat veg that you like. I'm going to encourage you to stop saying you like it. You can't say that you like something that you don't have control over. And that's a huge part of this puzzle, right? So if you had total control and could take it or leave it, and you're telling me that you take it sometimes, different story. That's not what you're telling me. You're telling me that even when you don't want to have it, you're having it. That's not control. Hello, Lance Durham. Craving definitely do go away. Thank you for validating that. You're very welcome, Nicola. Thank you for popping in. I'm not sure if you're leaving, but thank you. Lance, I went from 250 to 200 pounds in 4 months, just dropping sugar. The first 2 weeks were miserable, but after that, I only wanted to eat when I was hungry. I do feel my story was so similar that it was a 2-week struggle. And then after that, I was surprised. And then, of course, I pulled myself back into the struggle because I didn't fully understand what I had accomplished with the cashew thing. And then when I got myself out, I was like, well, lesson learned. And since then, it's been great. This channel and Dr. Berg woke me up. Well, thank you, Lance. I appreciate that I was any part to do with you being on a healthy path. And I'm going to add your name to my list. I've been collecting people's names that they tell me that I helped them in their journey. I'm going to add your name to my list. I like looking at the list. You're person number 3 that have actually said that to me. I love looking at the list. It makes me feel good to know that there are 3 people, because you're the 3rd one now, that I've actually helped to do something amazing. So thank you. And I can't thank you enough, because your kind of story keeps me motivated, because hopefully at some point I will have 1,000 or 2,000 people in my list. But I'm definitely going to try to get a screenshot of that before this is over. So, Ange, you just said something very profound, Violet. Saying to oneself, I can't have it, could be keeping it in my life. Yes, absolutely. Never thought of it. I never thought about that. Amazing. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that you keep saying, I'm never gonna, and then you end up doing it because you're telling yourself you're never going to. And that's a loop that you have yourself in, where you just keep doing it over and over and over. Kind of like a very real Groundhog Day, right? Because you're actually just overly doing it to yourself, versus what I tell myself and what I encourage every wellness warrior to tell themselves is I eat healthy food, because I do. Um, Law and economy. Cruciferous vegetables, avocado, if it is ripe, are okay. So the thing about that law and economy is that they're only okay if they ripened on the plant. And what we've learned from Sally Norton and all the research that she's done is that they often don't ripen on the plant. They're ripening, and I believe Dr. E talked about this too. They're ripening. So we pick them and then we ship them across the world. And then when they get to wherever they're getting, we even often buy them and they're not ripe yet. And we leave them on the counter to ripen, not realizing that that means that those toxins are in there causing problems. So that's what I'll say on that. And it's time to move on. It's not about being full, it's a matter of sweet being rewarding for eating dinner. Childhood programming. Oh, the reward for eating dinner. Yeah. Yeah, there is some childhood programming at play there too. Um, and that whole idea that even some people leave a little room for dessert, right? Because they think that's what they should do. Any advice to shut down the naysayers? No, let them talk. I feel like sometimes people just want to come and say that can't work, that's impossible, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, I know what I used to weigh. I know what kind of pain I used to be in. I know that my health has improved because I have more energy. I'm thinking more clearly. I remember things more, and I mean, I still don't have the best memory, but I remember more than I used to remember. I see the improvements in how I feel, in how I am in the world, in how so if the naysayers don't believe, they don't have to believe. Like, I'm not going to force anybody to eat what they don't want to eat. You'll notice that everybody in here is asking questions and trying to understand based on what they're trying to accomplish in their life. Terrific. And if I say something that helps you to understand better and helps you to stay on track, terrific. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, terrific too. Right? If you're sitting there watching this thinking, "Wow, she has no idea what she's talking about," that's fine. Don't don't comment. I don't want to hear you. But it's fine for you to think that, right? Because why? Because you're going to live your path. I'm going to live my path. And as I've said a bunch of times, you're going to do what you're going to do because you're you. I can't make you do anything. But I will encourage everybody. Today we are Monday, the 5th of August, 2024. So 10 years from now, in 2034, hopefully I'm still making videos and I'll be talking about what's going on with me, because I hope that I've helped even more people get here. And we're going to compare how I'm feeling and how that naysayer is feeling. And some of these naysayers, you're walking beside them, you're talking to, they're in your family, they're your friends or what. So where you are currently, Ashley, and where you were 5 years ago, where the naysayer is right now, and where the naysayer was 5 years ago, Ashley, are they better in their health and you better in your health, and vice versa? And then we go forward 10 years. And 10 years from now, we'll have an answer, right? And another 10 years after that, we'll have another answer. Now that I know that there's a possibility that I actually live comfortably past 100 and that our expectancy is 120, yeah, I don't mind. I'll let the naysayers say what they're saying and do what they're doing, because at the end of the day, we each need to get there how we get there. I'm not going to get there whether you're getting there, because I'm not eating any veg. And you're not going to get there the way that I'm going to get there right now because you're eating veg and you're eating processed food and you're eating all this other stuff. And maybe you're even smoking and drinking and whatever. Maybe you don't go to bed at night and what, like all the things, right? Maybe you video game instead of resting your brain and reading a book. And like maybe you're doing all this stuff, right? And like whatever. That's not what I'm doing. We'll see. How do I feel in 10 years? How do you feel in 10 years? So I'm not worried about it. Let them talk. Oh, by the way, one of the things I love about when naysayers talk is a lot of the times they give me science that I didn't have access to, even though they're using it wrong, which is fine. But they say scientific things that help me to then do better for myself. Like, for example, I didn't know that casomorphine was a real thing. And then I looked it up, and it's a real thing. And it's part of the reason that I don't eat as much dairy as I used to. Because why would I? Now that I know that casomorphine is an actual thing. So once in a while, once in a blue moon, because casomorphine. Do you understand that naysayers have their place in the world because they help us? Because they say things, and some of the things they're saying are scientifically sound, even though they're using them wrong, right? Because they're using them towards keeping their addiction alive, which is fine. And maybe it's not fine for you if you care about that person and want them to be healthy. Then it's not fine. But for people that are going to randomly jump into my comments, that's fine. For the people I care about, I say what I say. I keep being me. I live my life. I let them see that I'm fine. I let them see that I do activities with the kids and I keep up and whatever. And I hope that one day they join me. For the people that I care about, I hope that they join me one day. I hope that makes sense, Ashley, because we can't control other people. I've stopped trying to do that years ago. It just doesn't work. I don't think we need to shut them up. We know better. We can just show them by example. Thank you, Pat. You're right, Andrew. He's very encouraging. Love that about him. Unfortunately, I'm late, but I can look back. Yes, you can. Thank you very much. Let's see. Questions. Violet and Patrick, do you guys use electrolytes? No, I don't use any extra electrolyte powders. What I do is I salt my stuff quite a bit. I've recently added iodine because I was encouraged to check out Dr. Elizabeth Bright. You guys encouraged me to check her out. And she said some things that made me say, you know what? I'm going to give the iodine thing a try out of curiosity. Let's see what happens there. And so I'm doing that. And I'll report back on how I feel and if I see any improvements / changes / problems. Whatever I find, I'll let you know. But electrolytes, no, I don't take any. And let's see, Ange has another one. Lily stevia chocolate I found on YouTube. Many videos where people are making things with it. It's hard to get away from because it shows up in the feed all the time. Keto treats annoying. You know what, Ange? So I used to get a lot of videos about making keto treats because I watched videos about making keto treats. And then I just stopped watching videos about making keto treats, and now I don't get videos about keto treats. So, and I don't watch videos about how to make keto foods either because I decided to just cook what foods I cook. And yeah, I don't get them anymore. Now, if I wanted a recipe for something and I couldn't remember how to do it, I have other like email addresses that if I needed to jump in and find a recipe of something, like let's say I wanted to make a certain kind of, because for the kids, sometimes I'll make things like taco pie, for example. That is a keto dish. And I make it for the kids and well, for Pat and I, if we're gonna have some, I make the keto version because they actually like the keto version. And why wouldn't I make the keto version instead of making the version that's high in carb and gonna harm their health? So there's certain keto meals that our kids actually like, and so therefore, what if I make it? I'll just go find it for them, because since being carnivore, Pat and I are just eating meat, or at least all I have to cook for us when Pat and I are eating is just meat, and more meat, and sometimes fish. So if I need to go in and get a recipe, I go on the other account and I go to YouTube and I find my recipe. And then I look at it and then I go back to my normal YouTube. So in my feed, and all I have are keto doctors and people, even the normal people that I have that are keto are not talking about keto foods. They're talking about their life. They're talking about what they've learned. They're talking about what they've changed. They're talking about the like health things, but they're not doing recipes and that kind of stuff. And the reason I stopped is that, yeah, you just want to make them, and it's like, now I understand that they're not necessary. So I think that keto recipe channels are good for the beginning people who need the transition, right? That I'm not quite ready to give up lasagna, for example. I'm not quite ready to give up cookies, for example. But, and this is a huge but, the damaging nature of those keto cookies, for example, with the very, very high oxalate almond flours and nut flours that they use, the concentration of how many nuts I'm actually getting in that one cookie compared to if I actually had to sit there and eat the nuts, I wouldn't have eaten as many. Not to mention all the other ingredients in there. I don't believe that these things are healthy long term. And so, again, encouraging you, when you are going to eat, you should be eating food only. And if you only eat food, yeah, then you'll do much better. So I hope that that helps you to maybe just look at this a little differently. Hello, Javier Diz Gonzalez. How are you doing? And people, and the calorie is not a calorie. It's about the food, what your body does with it, and what it's about. Example, 1,000 calories from meat are different than from another food. Completely agree, Javier. The body cannot count calories. Absolutely. Dr. Fung pointed that out years ago. What the body does is use and store the food you eat. And that is why fasting is so important. I agree that fasting can be a very powerful tool in healing. I disagree with Dr. Fung on using fasting as a weight loss method. So that's where he and I will disagree. But I love it for healing the body. I love it for giving my body time to rest from food and just do the things that it's supposed to do, because we're not supposed to have food in our gut all the time. But Dr. Fung's amazing, and pointing out that our body doesn't understand calories. I love that he pushed that narrative forward. Cam's dad said, I asked my butcher to leave more fat on it. I hope to get closer to 50-40 on, or 50-50. I have stage 4 and seek out fat. You know, one thing that I will say is that I do think, I'm always confused. Let me put it like this. I'm always confused by the protein to fat ratio. And like, because it's not necessarily that you need 50% of the meat to be fat for it to be 50% fat. We have to keep in mind that when we're doing these calculations, we're using that calorie thing that our body can't stand, by the way. But just pointing this out. Calorie wise, fat is more calories than the meat. So it's not exactly a 50% is 50% kind of scenario. But I do understand why you want that, because if you're fighting cancer, you want your body to have all the energy that it needs. But I just want to point out, your body also needs protein to rebuild you. And so if your body is trying to rebuild structure, and it's not just, if it's a brain cancer, then I understand why you're pushing the fat number like that far. But if it's not a brain cancer, your body still needs protein. So, and even when we do ground meat, for example, like the percentage of fat in ground meat is much higher than they put on the label. So just throwing those numbers out there, or those ideas out there, just so that we are very focus on what we're doing and making sure we get enough protein. Do you take vitamins? No, just the iodine. That's all I take. Please add me to your list. You help me all the time. Oh, Yvonne, thank you. I appreciate that. I will. I'll add you to my list. Thank you very much. I was looking for people who say spontaneously, though. I wasn't asking people to say it. But thank you very much. I will ask you. I will add you to my list. Hi, Singing. How you doing? From Chicago. We'll do replay on lunch. You're encouraging. Keep it up long after 10 years from now. Keep it up long after. I will definitely listen. I have no intention of not doing videos, but you never know what life is going to throw at you. So, but I definitely would love to 10 years from now still be making videos and still be going strong and still be talking to all of you. And I'm going to have to end the stream in a few minutes because I have to get ready for work. So please no more comments. I'm going to try to get through these ones ending with Cam's dad. You can say goodbye, but not more than that. Please, please, please. I do need to go to work. And I want to go through all the comments. I love answering you guys. By the way, Carnivore for 14 months went from 220 to 138. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease gone. Thank you. Arthritis gone. Allergies gone. Skin cleared up. Oh, wow. Hair even getting back to original color. More muscle. A1C of 7. Cam's dad. That is terrific. That I'm so happy for you. I can't even just say how happy I'm for you. That's terrific. We all should be aiming for those kind of results. Real physical body changes that just help us to feel good and live our best life, right? And I agree with you, Laura. I don't push my diet on anyone, but I don't like to be told I'm going to have a heart attack either. Nasty thing to say to anyone. It is a horrible thing to say. And we both know that they're more likely to have the heart attack than we are, which is sad, but reality. And so I'm trying my best to just be like, okay, we'll agree to disagree, right? And I know what my results have been, and I know what path I was on before. So Kamzad, you went from 7.5 A1C to 5.6. Thank you for your content. I appreciate you saying. All right, thank you for your. Are you saying that I helped you with that? I would if you. If I even had a small part to play in that, I'm humbled. That's because those are truly amazing numbers. Regina Pallone, hello. Do you mind me asking how old you are? I don't normally say my age, and I'm going to keep it like that. But no, have I said my age? I've given hints at my age. Pat, have I actually said my age? I can't remember if I've ever said my age, but I'm over 50. I'll say that. I'm over 50. I look fabulous. You look fabulous and help me so much. Another person I've helped. Oh, I'm gonna have a lot of screenshots from this live stream. Thank you. So Rosemary Ladon just for hi, following you from Waxholm, Sweden. I've had problems with this summer with Carnivore. I ate ice cream often. Oof, but feel like I'm on the right track. Okay. So sometimes, especially in the summer, like we feel like we need these things to enjoy the summer. I would encourage you to try to do something fun for yourself, like to go somewhere or go do something. Like I feel like we have a tendency to celebrate with food rather than celebrating with activities and doing like really cool things with people, right? Or even doing hobbies that we love for ourselves. So I would encourage you to try to find something like that rather than celebrating or like celebrating the summer with ice cream, because I feel like that's sometimes what's happening. I hope that's helpful. Rosemary. Walt Payne. I keep trying to convince people that non-nutritive sweeteners are a diet killer for the many carb addicts, but this is one major cause of setbacks. Yeah. So what you're talking about is that cephalic response to sugar, which is our brain reacting to the fact that it tastes something sweet. And I don't remember which doctor pointed this out, but our brain can't tell the difference between real sweet and fake sweet because there's a taste that's going straight to your head. Your stomach hasn't even gotten the thing yet. So your body doesn't know how much sugar came in except for it tasted sweet, and your brain gauges how much sugar it thinks is coming based on how sweet it is, but even that's not accurate because for example, potatoes don't taste as sweet as for example peppers, right? And yet the carb count isn't that far off. So, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's a definite place where people end up reactivating their sugar chasing and all the problems can show up. Cam's dad, regarding protein, I usually hit about 150 a day and weigh in approximately 130 pounds. 150 grams of protein per day? 150 grams of protein per day. Okay, that actually that doesn't sound off. And if you're trying to heal, being a little over, I would probably want to be even more over, but yeah, being a little over is always better. Like in terms of protein amount, being over is better. So yeah, I hope you and your doctors have gotten those numbers to be about what you want them to be. And I really do hope you're working with a doctor on doing that. Um, Regina Pallone, I love your content and always listen to you. Have listened, you have helped me so much. Thank you. And Cam is saying, yes, you helped. Oh, yeah, wow. I'm touched. I even to have a finger on what you just listed that you've done, Cam, like, wow. Um, wow. Thank you, Tomaticus, for being here. I appreciate you coming in. So, Law and Economy saying also had brain fog, quit all the processed sugars, packaged food, sorry, and you put all the sugars. I also drink water, herbal tea with milk, but no sugar and milk. Congrats on you for making those kind of changes. Oh, Patrick, you're too funny. No, I'm not 34. Um, the oncologists are not helpful, by the way. Oh, okay. That's too bad. But I encourage you still to yeah. I'm sure you're working with someone, and if you're getting all your information from online, maybe reach out to some of the keto doctors. There are a lot of keto doctors that are willing to help people around the world. I know Kerry from Homestead How is working with a few doctors on his documentary. So Cam's dad, maybe you could reach out in that community and see if there's a doctor that's willing to help you with the situation, because I would just feel comfortable knowing that you're also talking to doctors who are um knowledgeable in this way of eating, even if they're not your doctor and if they're just giving you general information that you can research more yourself. It's good to have the information and research more and just have a better idea of what you're doing. But like I said, I feel encouraged by the fact that you weigh 138 but you're eating 150 grams of protein. That sounds at least the minimum that you would want to be doing. And yeah, that sounds like a good starting spot at minimum. But I encourage you to get more assistance. Thanks everybody for this amazing conversation. I'm definitely not going to close the screen because I have so much to screenshot from today's. I appreciate all of you. So happy that we are 50,000 strong in on YouTube. And I love everybody in the community. Please join the community. And even if I'm not in there, talk to each other. I try to go in as much as I can with all the work that I'm doing and all the things that I'm doing. But I want every person in the wellness squad to feel free to talk to everybody else in the wellness squad, because we are going to support each other in staying on track, in getting our bodies back to the healthy place that we want them to be, in teaching the next generation. That's my next big goal, Wellness Warrior, to teach the next generation to eat properly and not live the stupidity that I lived. And everybody who's on board with this, please, you can help me out. Go into the description, join the squad. That's the best thing you can do. Help me out. There are ways to donate to what I'm trying to do as well in the description. Share this video. Share every video that I put out. These are all ways that you can help me push this cause. I want the next generation to be eating properly from the get-go, right? Every parent who knows this information and puts their child on this way of eating is a step in the right direction. So I would love for anyone who'd like to give some assistance to me to choose one of those ways, however you can help, whether it's a donation or whether it's sharing the video, liking the video, comment. I want that next generation to eat properly. Thank you so much. Next Monday, 11:20, we'll have another conversation. Get out there and eat healthy, guys. We can do this. Our body deserves it. Thank you very much. This was a fun stream. I can't wait till next week.